10 historic sites in Ghana you should visit once in your lifetime. Every tourist visiting the Gold Coast should plan to visit at least one of the historic sites in Ghana. It is an important feature that tourists should never miss. The majority of them tell stories of oppression, survival, and ingenuity. Located along the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Guinea, Ghana is recognized globally for its unique cultures, particularly the Kente. Ghana also played a major role during the transatlantic slave trade era. The Ghanaian government has done a good in preserving some of these historic monuments and relics. Without that, there will be no historic sites in Ghana for us to visit. From monuments that are now part of UNESCO World Heritage sites to ancient tribes, Ghana has a lot of historic sites that bring up some strong emotions. If you love antiquities, plan to visit the following historic sites when you visit Ghana. Number 1. The traditional buildings of the Ashanti Kingdom. The Ashanti Kingdom was a great force to reckon with in the 18th century and still remains influential to this day in Ghana. Their militaristic nature allowed them to control large areas with significant gold deposits. They ruled a vast area of present-day Ghana before the arrival of the Europeans in 1806. This historic site contains 13 houses built by the Ashanti Kingdom. During the European reign, a significant number of the Ashanti buildings were destroyed. However, the surviving buildings are now cultural emblems. You will find them in what is now southern Ghana. In 1980, they were recognized as one of the 2 UNESCO World Heritage sites in Ghana. These buildings consist of clay or mud walls and roofs made from woven palm branches. They have a geometrical design embellished with stylized animal emblems. Number 2, Jamestown Lighthouse. Interestingly, Jamestown is one of the 2 oldest historic sites in Ghana, in Accra precisely. The second is Usha Town. As early as the 17th century, Jamestown already had communities. By the end of the 19th century, it already had heavy development. Jamestown remains useful today as a great fishing harbor. The area has witnessed tremendous population growth over time. The most prominent structure of Jamestown is the lighthouse. The original structure is the handiwork of the British as early as 1871. However, the present structure came to be in the 1930s. The Jamestown Lighthouse has an imposing height of 28 meters. From the summit, you will get a bird's-eye view of the Usha Fort, the Bukom District, and the James Fort. Jamestown is today a popular tourist destination and one of the most important historic sites in Ghana. Number 3, Forts and Castles, Volta, Greater Accra, Central, and Western Region. This is the 2nd UNESCO World Heritage Site in Ghana. These fortified trading posts were built between the 15th and 18th centuries. These magnificent buildings span about 500 kilometers, sandwiched between the coast of Bayan in the west and Kita in the east. Over the century, the fort witnessed a succession of occupants including traders from Denmark, Britain, Germany, Holland, Portugal, Spain, and Sweden. Consequently, they played an important role in the gold and slave trade. These Ghanaian forts are better preserved than other forts in the neighboring countries. In 1979, UNESCO recognized this monument as a World Heritage Site. Number 4, Kakum National Park. This national park dates back to 1931, but it was not until 1992 that it became a national park. The park covers an area of 357 kilometers square. The major attraction of this park is the Canopy Walkway, the first of its kind in Africa. It is also one of the only 3 locations on the continent with a similar walkway of length up to 350 meters. The walkway links 6 gigantic trees and reaches a height of 40 meters above the floor of the forest. Other features of the park include hardwood trees of heights up to 65 meters, medical plants, and the Sunbird Trail. Most tourists want to have a feel of the walkway. Therefore, if you are planning to visit this park, arrive on time. It is definitely one of the historic sites in Ghana that should be on your itinerary. Number 5, Paga Nonia. This is one of the historic sites in Ghana that attracts lots of visitors. The Ghana Tourist Board in 2008 announced it earned about $500 million from tourists visiting this area. The origin of this slave camp dates back to 1704. Slave raiders came to Paga and the surrounding communities and held people as slaves. This unchecked activity led to the establishment of slave camps in the area. Located in Upper East Region, Paga Nonya looks desolate. What remains are water troughs in the rock, observation posts, and grinding stones. The management is asking the government to renovate the camps to make them attractive again. Number 6, Lake Buzuntua. This lake is sacred, according to the Ashanti people. The people believe the souls of the dead converge here to bid their farewell to the goddess Asazia. This lake is over 1.07 million years old. Interestingly, Lake Buzuntua is to date the only natural lake in Ghana. Several studies suggest the crater on which the lake sits must have been from the impact of asteroids. Chromis buzumanus is a species of fish predominant in this area. However, this lake faces the risk of drying up. There is an ongoing debate for this historic site to be part of UNESCO World Heritage sites. Consequently, it will help to preserve this sacred water. This is one of the historic sites in Ghana that urgently needs government intervention. Number 7, Holy Trinity Cathedral. The funding for this cathedral came from the British government. The Holy Trinity Cathedral is part of the Anglican Diocese of Accra. This ancient building was completed in 1894 but was made a cathedral in 1909. The most remarkable feature of this fortress-like structure is the rectangular bell tower. The church is not only a place of worship but also one of the historic sites in Ghana that tourists want to visit. The resident tranquility within the walls is a respite from the bustling city noise. Number 8, Soliga Slave Market. The name Soliga is a derivation from Salji, a Dagomba word meaning to get used to a place. The Soliga market was an important trading route linking the northern and southern Sahel. Its location in the East Ganja district makes it an important trading route for agricultural products. However, in the transatlantic slave trade era, it also served as a route for moving slaves to the coast for onward exportation. A series of events led to civil war in 1892. Consequently, this led to the decimation of the population of this area. To reach the Soliga slave market, you will need a ferry through Yeji if coming from Kumasi. This difficult terrain is the reason why the Soliga slave market is one of the historic sites in Ghana with the least visitors. Number 9, Gwolu Slave Defense Wall. Human beings have a natural survival instinct. The Gwolu Slave Defense Wall is one of the historic sites in Ghana that highlight how far humans can desperately fight for survival. Gwolu is a small town in Sisala West District in Upper West Region. The Gwolu Wall dates back to the 19th century. It was built by Gwolu Koro Leman and its main purpose was to defend the people against slave raiders. Most of these walls have been lost to environmental factors. However, the surviving wall is at the border town of Gwolu. Gwolu also holds other important tourist attractions like a traditional bone-setting clinic and a crocodile pond. The tomb of the former president, Hilla Lehman, 1979 to 1981, is also here. Number 10, Cape Coast Castle. This facility is a 15th century building by the Swedes to facilitate gold and timber trades. However, it was later used as a holding facility for slaves before they were shipped to America. The British Public Works Department began restoration work of the castle in the 1920s. After Ghana's independence in 1957, the Ghana Museums and Monuments Board took over the care of the building. The building now serves as a museum and houses slave-related artifacts and documents. The rusting cannons on the walls paint a vivid picture of the fortification of the facility. This is one of the historic sites in Ghana that tells you how much Africa has endured. There are a few other historic sites in Ghana that this list did not cover. This includes the Independence Square and OSU Castle. However, the good news is that regardless of which part of the country you visit, there should be a historic site close by. If you have been to one of the historic sites in Ghana, we would love to hear your thoughts.